I hope this is the last time. I really do now. Hi. So, what's with all the hashtags? Before we begin, due to technical issues, the video version of this piece has been delayed. As I'm unclear on when this may be rectified, I'm recording separate audio and video files concurrently and releasing only the audio for the interim period, hence the slightly weird setup because there's recording audio over here and video audio over here. It's a long story. Although I could record them separately, I have concluded that this is the best option in the interests of congruence and preventing discrepancies between the multiple releases. I have also arranged to publish the final edit of this original document through StoryPie, a creative writing website set up by a friend of mine. The link to StoryPie will be in the description and is also available via my social media links. Trigger warning. If you are reading the aforementioned document, this is your generic trigger warning. I was going to wing it, but seeing as I've typed it, I'm going to go with it. Personally, I find them and the very notion of them highly egregious. However, I do wish to accomplish something positive here, so if you would like a trigger warning, this was it. Along my way in the physical world, I have been exceptionally fortunate in close bonds that I have built, as unconventional as some of them may be. So to those individuals, living and past, whom I shall spare the embarrassment of naming, thank you for your unwavering faith and ability to see within me what I had forgotten was there. I sincerely hope that I may honour your influences with all the dignity and respect that deserves, as far as humanly possible. One of the many reasons that I found myself here making recordings, intending to let the world loose on the results at this specific juncture on my path, has been the inspiration of, in part, the inspiration of several existing and long-running YouTubers. Many thanks for your inspiration and support. I sincerely hope I may steer clear of the many pitfalls before me and that I don't cause too many a facepalm along the way, as inevitable as some will be. Now for the talk element. My first video was, as I said at the time, a personal test. Would I be content to take the risk of making a video and publishing it online for all and sundry to critique? The content itself was inconsequential, needing only to be suitable for publication, without the need to go into hiding or something. I enjoy a wide variety of creative activities when I'm in a good place, so it was an ideal subject, and as time passes, yes, it would be lovely to share some of those randomly creative things with the world, so who knows. For me though, now really isn't that time. I also have no intention of airing my dirty laundry in public. However, the main point of testing myself on something mundane, because let's face it, cutting a blouse with a pair of pinking shears is hardly brain surgery now, is it? Was to see if I'm ready to start working on something that first occurred to me during my later teens and very early 20s. I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. I've been referred to as having a very philosophical approach to most things, and I tend to employ professionalism as a personal value. On the whole, I find it makes life much easier all round. This piece has taken a considerable amount of reflection, observation, it has taken effort actually, research and preparation in general. This is script incarnation, the 5th for instance, and it's been edited. There is potentially a lot at stake here, both personally and on a larger scale. I would very much prefer this to be inspired solely by past events. Yet life follows its own agenda, and though I disagree with some of Mahatma Gandhi's more extreme views, he certainly seems to have been spot on when he said that we must be the change we want to see within the world. Therefore, regardless of my own desire to get through what I must admit is the most intense personal challenge I have faced yet, it seems that now is instead the perfect time to start speaking up about these things too. Yay. My current personal situation does have a lot of bearing on what I aim to accomplish, again, both personally and at a societal level. Not because I think I am special. In fact, for the exact opposite reason. I know that I am not special. My children and I just happen to be a few of the lucky ones. We are getting away and have bright futures ahead of us all, both as a family and as individual humans, which we are very keen to embark upon as soon as possible, by the way, but that's a whole nother story. With all that said, what's with all these hashtags? Indeed, this is the most intense and personally challenging time that we, my children and I, have ever faced. It is by no means the darkest though. That was a very long time ago now. And due to what I shall gloss over here as a traumatic and turbulent past, interspersed with some brief periods of relative tranquility and a whole new dose of ongoing trauma, I have had no choice but to reconcile an inordinate amount of conflict, both internal and external. I have, mainly due to happenstance, had to do most of the coping, maturing, etc. on my own. This is not to blame anyone though. Far from it. I believe, and have done for a very long time, that this was simply an exceptionally sound briefing in everything inherently and catastrophically wrong with the system from the inside. I am equally grateful for every horrendous memory as I am for all the pleasant ones. They have enabled me to become who I am, granted me the wisdom and now courage to raise my own voice amongst the din of orders to keep looking left. For whatever reason, I was exposed to just the right amount of freedom and positive input to begin questioning my normality at a very early age. Because of this, I very quickly became impassioned with the notion of equality and fair treatment for all. In the environment that I grew up in, I lost myself entirely, believing that I was worthless, selfish, arrogant, no better than ten a penny, just a pawn of the system, living to work and not working to live. The seemingly logical conclusion was that any and all of my aspirations were lofty daydreams at best. By the time I was in my mid-teens, I had developed an overwhelming fear of living up to the attention seeker title that had been bestowed upon me. This all resulted in a complete and unsupported breakdown, which I then totally suppressed. It has taken more than 10 years, 3 courses of study within the field of person-centered therapeutic theory, which I successfully completed, by the way, along with an untold amount of soul-searching to climb my way back up. To be completely frank, I had already completed the first 2 courses when I began recalling suppressed memories, and due to events that began to unfold during my level 3 studies in 2011-12 academic year, it has been necessary to alter my path somewhat. The currently ongoing trauma is a transient yet persistent issue, which is well in hand. However, repeatedly placing this project on the back burner due to external events has gone on far too long also. I also realise that I need to provide an example of progress, as research in these fields, whilst much needed, causes great controversy and, in fact, can and does cause further serious psychological harm to those in need of support. Therefore, the only examples I could readily provide would need to be anecdotal. Beyond that, the only example one could possibly ever provide without potentially contravening moral and ethical standards, boundaries and values would be the self. Therefore, here we are. Hi. Having survived for this long, with the catalogue of experience and knowledge that I have accrued along the way, I find myself left with an extremely well-honed double-edged sword to handle. It has weighed heavily in my grasp for a number of years now, and grows heavier by the day. In short, I know that there are countless more like me, and like my children, only I know that, unlike us, the vast majority are not so lucky. They are stuck in their own personal hell, desperately trying to survive and cope. Prospering for the unlucky ones is a far-off fantasy. No one is immune from this potential either, not one person. And perhaps ironically, those that make it into adulthood seemingly unscathed, believing that they are immune and often perceived as such by peers and society in general, tend to be the ones that fall the hardest. This is entirely wrong, and as harsh as this may sound, no matter how a situation came to be, their blood is on all of our hands. Sorry. I care not who, where, how, or when. If action, including inaction, is morally wrong, then it must be highlighted and discussed openly with a view to permanent, workable, person-centred solutions. Constant cries that new words in the dictionary mean an increased freedom of speech are simply untrue to their core. New words are for newly discovered things, materials, species, that type of thing. The new elements that have been added to the periodic table, for instance, they required names. Terms like cis, or terms as cis, and the like were already covered. It's gone too far. I am a heterosexual, Caucasian, female, single parent with both physical and mental health issues due to my experiences. I can find, and do find, other females attractive without needing to fight a pointless internal battle over whether or not I need to adopt a new and obscure title to encompass my personal worldview. That stress I really don't have time for, especially when there is starvation, genocide, persecution and abuses of all kinds at both micro and macro levels. There was a time, not very long ago, that if I'd been deemed a social justice warrior, I possibly would have thought I'd done something right for once. These days, the term has been hijacked by, from what I can ascertain, appear to be groups and individuals that are best described as rebels without a cause. This does nothing for those truly in need of support. If anything, it is harmful to such individuals by deterring potential fund and awareness raisers away from becoming involved with genuine causes in the first place. For every angry protester, no one can possibly say how many true social justice warriors may have been turned off by the conduct of these so-called activists. For the record, if there is a need to bestow a title upon my personage, egalitarian is probably the best and most logical fit. In fact, the amount of times I've said this line now, it's the one that works. It defines well enough. I have been trying to urgently relocate my children and myself for over 8 months now. Progress is happening, but slow probably isn't quite strong enough a word to cover the frustrating delays. This means that throwing out a set of hashtags and producing this talk are kind of my limit at the moment, in terms of major steps forward with this project at least. When we first needed to move, one of the avenues I explored was a GoFundMe page. It was called Get Out of Dodge, and it's still there. And the aim was to raise the necessary funds to expedite the relocation. I believe I was still employed at that point, so if memory serves, it had the potential to be a quick turnaround. However, that wasn't to be. If it was, I wouldn't be doing this now. I never really publicised it because it felt like begging, and I am a firm believer in the idea that there is no such thing as a problem, only a challenge which is yet to be met. Further, I have come to the conclusion that simply throwing money at our personal situation really is more like a sticking plaster to a broken arm, to borrow a phrase from the person-centred theory arena. The tags have began a good few weeks ago now, and somewhat surprisingly, they are proving to be quite effective. So, rather than let everything fizzle out before it's grown any wings, I thought I'd produce this piece, this talk, whatever. I can quite happily admit that I allowed myself to jump the gun a little, as it appeared that an emergency move to social housing was in the offing. Had I waited, I might not have picked up this particular gauntlet quite so soon. Alas, I have. The hope being that other lucky ones out there will be feeling the same passionate drive as I and others close to me do. That passion is to peacefully raise awareness of and find solutions to some of the numerous issues in the world that have become far more inflammatory and convoluted than they have ever really needed to be. The plan now is to repurpose the GoFundMe page specifically to further the cause of addressing true inequality by working towards better services and practices across the socio-economic board. Increased awareness and better, more collaborative research across the fields are key to this. Funding would help to enable hosting of online and real-world public events such as workshops, talks, and in time, hopefully, potential client services for those in need of support. Funding would also enable avenues to better, more comprehensive research and development through seminars, think tanks, studies, and the like. Throughout all of my experiences and those of others to which I have been witness or privy, I have been repeatedly smacked in the face by the knowledge that all of these bizarre, obscure and unforeseeable matters of happenstance must have occurred before in some form. More importantly, it seems inevitable to me that these things will continue to occur until enough human beings come to the realization that each and every one of us, especially if you have somehow found yourself party to this, has the means, motive and opportunity to make some small positive difference. Furthermore, I personally believe that we each have an unwavering duty to speak up for true equality. I am not alone in these goals, I know this, but I am critically aware of the limitations upon me, both with the immediate temporary upheaval in my own world and as a single voice in the longer term and broader arena. Improved services with preventative rather than only restorative capacity are well within the grasp of current systems. However, a huge shift in perception is desperately required before such progress will ever be possible. Again, using myself as an example, I am currently on some fairly hefty medications. It's the first time in my life I've needed any medication for my mental health, which is solely due to the immediate nature of the personal situation. I have been repeatedly assessed and found to be extremely anxious as a result of the trauma I have experienced in the past and that I am currently living with. I shake like a leaf at the idea of doing most things at the moment. However, I have also repeatedly been found, inclusive at the as of the time of authorship, to present no risk to either myself, my children, or anyone else for that matter. In our case, unfortunately, there have even been instances of fraudulent reports being made with malicious intent. As of the time of authorship, I am also assured that this is under investigation because such actions did very nearly result in the loss of my children to the care system and my potentially indefinite hospitalisation. I've come through this far and so have my children, and we've done it together with me being mum. So that's how it's going to be for all of our natural tomorrows. The driving force for me is quite literally, what about the next guy? Yes, I meant to say guy. It's a turn of phrase. If you're offended by that, then to be frank, tough shite. You had your matey, you had your trigger warning. See, I'm so kind I even put that in there for you. Relocation is the key first step to my family's recovery, and we will be moving into social housing, just not as quickly as we ideally needed. Due to the sublimely ridiculous nature of our situation, this experience has served only, really, to remind me how strong I am, what I have achieved in the past, and how I cope rather well with the current shyness. Most critically, I am reminded that I am absolutely the right type of person to be standing up and speaking out right now. I can achieve small change on my own. We all have that capacity. What I would love to see is a system where such oddities are prevented, and on the odd occasion that they do occur, it shouldn't take 8+ months of hanging on to one's sanity and one's family by a thread. That's not right. Not for anyone. There will always be nefarious characters with hidden agendas of their own. In truth, such individuals are unwell too. Their actions are motivated in part by not getting found out, regardless of who may suffer along the way. There is a distinct lack of empathy. There may well be a veil of empathic behaviour, yet when one looks below that, beyond the outward behaviours, the opposite frequently turns out to be the case. I have bumbled across enough individuals from all walks of life and all age groups in my time to know that there are far more good little nutters out there like myself, like my children, than there are nefarious types. And it is those fellow good little nutters that I wish to reach. If you should wish to donate to the renewed appeal when it's done, or you believe you have something to bring to the table in terms of skill, experience, or just drive, then yay, please, seriously, I'd love to hear from you. If not, all I ask, really, is that as you go about your day tomorrow or later, depending on where you are and what time it is and all that sort of stuff, please just try to see the world around you with a little more clarity. Ask yourself how someone else may be feeling. Watch the expressions of passers-by. Wonder how they might be feeling without attaching any personal feelings to your observations. When you are conversing or have been conversing with someone, ask yourself, was I listening to truly hear the person, or was I listening only to form my next response? If you see someone in need and are in a position to take a moment out to offer assistance, just do it. You may be thanked, you may not be, but it will provide you with an excellent opportunity to see the world with one foot in somebody else's reality, and that is a very powerful gateway to empathic awareness indeed. One last point, which I find crops up all too often, is the confusion or lack of general comprehension, perhaps, of the chasm in difference between the meaning of the words empathy and sympathy. To someone such as myself, and I know this applies to others, but I can only speak for myself, sympathy can actually be harmful and really, really insulting. I'm not a child and I'm not a puppy. I'm highly intelligent, perfectly capable, willing, and already in the process of enabling my children and myself to climb all of our personal mountains. If I needed or wanted someone to feel sorry for us, then I probably would have been much more vocal on the subject. That would make sense. I haven't been because actually I'd prefer our privacy. Additionally, I should say, when the tags first came to mind, there was one that I originally started with, then temporarily forgot, which, as you are about to discover, is ridiculously ironic. It is forgive and remember. Haha. See? Why this one? Simple. When we forgive and forget, we give up or lose the ability to glean wisdom from our experiences, which is technically impossible anyway because a brain is essentially a biological computer, but that's a whole different ballgame. So forgive and remember in order to have the chance to improve one's tomorrow and the tomorrows of others. The hashtags and necessary links to get hold of me are in the description. The next task on the list is to revisit the GoFundMe page and, as of preparing for the psych appointment just prior to writing this, I believe I have identified the final few pieces of the jigsaw puzzle to facilitate some really meaningful improvement through this project. I'm aiming for a 7-day turnaround deadline for the renewed appeal page as a mummy to some wonderfully awesome good little nutters of my own. I feel obliged to request a metaphorical boot up the arse if I should breach 8 days, please. That would be absolutely awesome. And if you do, feel free to have fun with that, actually. Yeah, anyway, where were we? Oh, yes. After all of that, and if you're still here, thank you. I would genuinely appreciate any comments. I'm definitely not big on prejudging people or bearing grudges in general. I believe that a differing point of view, well expressed, should always be welcomed as a gift. Meanwhile, whatever you do, take care and play nice. Bye.